Thank you for joining us on Chronic Curiosity. If you enjoy your time here, even the tiniest little sliver, please like and subscribe and follow and comment and do all the social media things you're supposed to do. We would greatly appreciate your appreciation. Also, if you'd like to get a hold of us, rantings, ravings, questions, comments, ideas, whatever it may be, link is in the description. Thank you for joining.
Oh shit. So what are we gonna do?
Ooh, this one seems like it might be a fucking doozy already.
Oh, what do you mean?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just laughing at the shit we're saying already off the rip. I'm not even coming in that hot. I only had 2 beers on the way over.
That's not too on the way.
You got that?
And here we go. Yes. I like that. I think there's something to it. Like every single time it's just like you just know when it's got to start.
Time to begin.
Oh man. Oh, I don't even know where to go with everything that's going on in the world today.
Hold on. How many episodes deep are we? About 14, 15?
Yeah. So Joe is the last one at 14. Yep.
I'd just like to say right off the rip, man, just another thank you to all our guests. Like, very, very cool that they would take the time out of their day to spend 3 or 4 hours with us.
Even if they don't know why.
Even if they don't know why. That, we got the chance to understand kind of who they are a little bit better and what they do, and hopefully kind of promote the things that they do in terms of either their business or their philosophy or the paradigms that they've adopted. And how they treat mankind and things like that. I'm going back to Joe when I say that because if I was going to get pulled over, that's the kind of police officer I would want right there.
Yeah, I mean, it was so funny too because literally, I know I mentioned it during the podcast, but he just pulled right in the driveway. You weren't here yet. I'd never met the guy. I didn't even know who he was. Obviously, I figured with the time frame that some dude pulling in my driveway, this is probably him. But he pulled into that old school F-150. He said like it was an 92 or something like that. Yep. Old square body. I'm like, okay. He's like, hey, you Fred? I'm like, yeah, I'm assuming you're Joe. He's like, yeah. And he literally like 30 seconds after getting out of the truck and we're talking, he's like, I don't know why I'm here. But in that 30 seconds, he had already, I felt like I'd met him like 10 times before. I was like, yeah,
sure.
No, this is going to be good. Yeah. And he was a phenomenal. I've already had really good feedback from people who listen to that. And I don't know, to me, it was just it was really good to have somebody, like you said, that police officer on with everything going on. But everyone's human.
Yeah.
There's shitty humans. Get used to it. Let's not blame, let's not kill all the humans just because there's a couple shitty ones. So, but it was really good. I really liked his...
Calm down, Bill Gates.
Yeah, okay. Who's coming in conspiracy hot now?
Hot. Right off the rip, bro.
We got to save the aliens. We can't do the aliens. We got to save that for Dune. I already...
I didn't even tell you this, actually. So Joe was kind of telling the story. I don't remember if this was when we were filming or not, but he was talking about SWAT and filling the positions for the sniper position. And... I actually spoke to one of the number 2, the guy that finished second at the jail, and I told him.
Yeah, he told us that story after the podcast. Okay. We're like, because remember we were sitting there, we're like,
we should have been rolling.
Yeah, you're going to have to come back and tell that story.
Yeah. But no, I spoke to him, the number, finished number 2, and I told him that. I was like, hey, he was just heaping praises upon you, and he thought that was pretty darn cool that he was willing to tell that story, to someone else, and so it was a cool circular.
We should just get them both in here and he can tell the story.
I could get the number 1 sniper too.
Let's go. Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be really neat. That'd be super neat. Yeah, so I think the idea for this one is just to kind of maybe not necessarily revisit some of those things, but I don't know, just kind of give the audience almost as much as us not necessarily a break from guests, but just to kind of take it in, because it's kind of weird. And we talked about it the other day from the first few episodes that we did up until now. Hasn't felt like that long. I guess it's been 14 weeks
Yeah.
or so, but no, a lot's changed. So
We're almost out of the first trimester.
is this where I start getting morning sickness? Is
Maybe,
is
maybe.
that what this is?
No, I think we've touched on a considerable amount of
Yeah.
topics in a cursory sense. And so maybe we can revisit some of these topics today. And we have the lovely Cassie that I think is
Yes.
going to.
Who's now a certified yoga teacher?
Oh, man, I thought you were about to start singing some Cardi B on me there. I was about to pump the brakes.
What?
Certified freak, 7 days a week. Got that? Okay, I'll stop.
Yeah.
It's 5 days a week, Tony.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Excuse,
yeah. You gotta get a break every once in a while.
Excuse me.
I'm getting old.
Oh, yeah. You've been busy too.
Very.
You're a certified yoga teacher now and functional range conditioning coach or something.
Mobility specialist is what they
Mobility
call
specialist. I got you.
it. Sounds a little too official, but yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you cut through nice and clear, but you still got to keep it up there.
One fist.
Yeah. He's down.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to? I mean, what's changed? Because you were on here episode, what was it, 5? I think was the last time you were on.
Yeah, you were like, how do I know who to trust?
Oh, yeah. Well, I voted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we all did.
Yeah, Tone.
Oh, of course I voted.
I didn't know if I was going to.
But how many times did I vote? Wink.
Ooh, tough to say these days.
Not if you're
Yeah.
Sidney Powell.
That's a whole debacle. Yeah, I knew I was going to vote. I just didn't know who I was going to vote for. No, so that was tough. But regardless, here we are, almost getting on the day of election or inauguration. Who knows what'll happen? Yeah, it's getting real weird out there. Did you see all the footage of that? With them pulling the suitcases out from under the tables.
And so I heard the guy from Georgia kind of explain that, and he broke it down. He was like, "Listen, guys," he was like, "these aren't any crazy suitcases. They're not even called suitcases. The ballot boxes or whatever they
Right.
called them." And he's like, "They were there the whole time." He was like, "There was no subterfuge or chicanery or whatever you want to say going on." He was like, "They accidentally sent them home, and they shouldn't have sent them home." He said, "But it's not the law." And I've just heard so many things. Another lady was like, "Oh, it is the law. They need to have people watching there." And the woman that brought the suitcases in brought them in the beginning, and she was the one that sent people home. And dude, I don't know.
There's
I don't know.
so much.
I don't know.
I just don't.
It does seem a little weird
Well, it
that
seems-
everything else was kind of like on the forefront, and then something got pulled out from underneath the table, and maybe there is an explanation for it. I don't know. I don't know. But at this point, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in the voting system. I feel like there's a lot of people that feel that same way.
Just when you think you can't lose any more confidence in your government, they go and do something like
Yeah.
this.
What do you mean? This is the most secure election ever.
Yeah. Well, I know I kind of said I want to touch on that a little bit because it's perfect circles back to the Uni 2020 discussion we had. But you know, I think there's a lot unity.
Had to bring it back.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of to me. I think why it's important, and like I said, I don't know what the hell's going on. I think one of the biggest things is I don't know how much. There's so many like things to say before the thing you say before. Fraud. Is there voter fraud? Is there election fraud? I think so. I think there always is.
Yes.
So that's the question is how much?
To what degree?
To what degree? So I think that's why this is important. And I think if anybody doesn't know or doesn't understand, because most of us don't, I mean, I know a little bit, but I think the important thing to think about is if we want secure, fair elections. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. Like who would, well, I don't think any normal person, any normal civilian at any point, if you think about it, yeah, I don't want a rigged election. I don't want fraud in the elections that to the governing bodies that are supposed to, or that essentially rule our worlds. Besides, Facebook and Twitter and all this social, besides the internet, the government second, So I think we need a fair election across the board. So I think there's there's a lot of people out there saying that, Trump, just shut up, you lost, get on with it, like move on. Just keep on doing, like, is that really what we want? Like,
So the shut up part would be fantastic.
yeah, well, that'd be,
Fantastic.
well, he actually has been fairly
I know he
quiet
has.
lately.
Oddly
Yeah.
enough, he has. But no, I 100% agree with you. Like, I don't feel good about the election, and it's not because it's not a candidate thing. It's hey, what we talked about. Episode 5 was, you were like, I don't know if my vote counts, but you know what? I'm still going to do my part because I think maybe my vote does count. So, does it count? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
know if there is fraud. If and I'm not even going to dive down the conspiracies of Sidney Powell or anything like that. It's just you want to know that you took the time out of your day to go. You voted. You want to make sure that it counts,
Right.
And I don't know.
And for once in my life, I actually, because I always used to believe that you said I had a teacher or something that said like your vote doesn't count.
Yep.
And essentially, kind of depending on how you want to spin that, electoral college and this, that, whatever. I'm okay with saying my vote doesn't count because ultimately it's the electoral college.
Yeah.
Because that's how it is. Not necessarily I think it's okay or right, but I'm okay with saying that because that's what the Constitution says and that's what it is. But I'm not okay with saying my vote doesn't count because it's always rigged.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people say like it's rigged, like it's stole. Like, did they steal it from Trump? I don't know. But the concern is, it's not on the top of my list of if the election got stolen from Trump, but can an election be stolen? And if it can, how often is it? And how often is it? They say rigged is such a weird word, but maybe it's I can't think of the word I want. Designated. That's what concerns me. Are the elections designated for the people that are supposed to be there? And that could get you down a real weird rabbit hole as well too. But so I think the questions that Trump raises and like all these things coming out, like, it looks really weird. Is there enough votes to change the decision? I don't know. But what really concerns me is it possible? And does it happen? And has it happened? Like,
Yeah.
because it's like what, like you said, my vote doesn't count.
Yeah, and I guess for me, like, if you're wanting that transparency and you're wanting to kind of instill confidence back in the American voter, cool. Do an audit. Do whatever you need to do to make sure that this thing was secure. Because if Biden was like, fire away, let's do this. At the end of the day, like, if they did find some fraud and his name wasn't attached to that, even if it got reversed and at least the American people go, oh, here's a politician who is willing to go to bat to, preserve our voting.
Right.
And if it does uphold, then it makes Trump look like that much more of a ridiculous human being. And then it secures Biden that much more as, the president-elect.
Right.
And it reinstills that voter confidence, if you will.
Well, and that's the way I look at it too. Like, the thing most concerning to me, it is concerning to me that Republicans are going again, are trying to say that this election was rigged.
Yeah.
If it wasn't. And if they're making up false accusations, all
True.
these things, like, that's super concerning. We don't want that. But right now, at this point in time, what's happening that's concerning to me is a lot of people that are anti-Trump are just saying, get over it, you lost. Whoa, 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 whoa. Like, this isn't like a foot race.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see who crossed the finish line first. Like, there's a lot of moving parts in this. And for people just to go, done, it's over, you lost, out. Like, when the other side's just saying, hey, we have some concerns here.
True.
And for people that we're so concerned about Trump, trouncing all over the U.S. people and its laws, and they think he's doing all this fraud behind, like with tax evasion and everything else. You think everybody would be like, yeah, let's prove this guy's an idiot.
Yeah.
Let's go through the legal system. Great. Because you know what? It's just going to prove that you're a sore loser.
Yeah. You already spent $48 million of the American taxpayers' money to find out, maybe he didn't do anything wrong and that you couldn't impeach him. Well, it's a little bit more money and a little bit more time to instill confidence in the American voter.
Yeah. And I think that maybe that's what is most concerning to me is there's still like, we need to unite as a people. We need to do this. But then
when it fits the narrative.
So like unity to me would be, all right, let's all work together. Let's get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
And make sure this was, a fair and equal election.
Sure. No, I agree. I 100% agree.
Are they still looking into it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's getting really weird right now.
Yeah, very weird. Like stories keep popping up all the time about just. Yeah, I feel like we shouldn't even say them on air because I feel weird saying them out loud. Like it's so ridiculous. But it's
happening. I mean, there's hearings going on in multiple states.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of people.
Whistleblowers coming out, signed affidavits, like dudes that have like, I delivered a truck full of ballots and I didn't know what I was delivering, and like it just. All kinds of
there's
stuff.
A guy that said he's a truck driver that was full of ballots. He drove for the USPS or something like that. But he took a trailer full of New York ballots to Pennsylvania, dropped the trailer off, moved his truck, and when he went back the next morning, and he got there later, and he's a witness that he just talked to, was it 2 days ago or something like that?
Yeah.
Said the trailer was gone.
Yeah, and they made him wait for like 6 hours. They wouldn't give him basically a slip to say why he was gone, and then he always rolls with the same trailer, like and it was gone. And I have no idea, like who knows what was on those ballots, but like,
or maybe he's lying.
Yeah, he could be lying, but
he could also go to jail for lying. So
there you go.
Yeah,
there's just a lot of very weird things just all popping up at a rapid pace, and even I guess play the odds. Like, let's say 90% of it's just BS, but 10% of it's true. Like,
yeah, the 10% still concerning.
Absolutely.
You put Biden and Trump, all of it aside. Hey, we're still going to be here in 4 years. Hopefully.
Well, speak for yourself.
Yeah, maybe the U.S. will be here in 4 years. You know what I mean? But that's concerning. We want to make sure that. Hey, has this always gone? Maybe this has always gone on.
Since the times of Tammany Hall in New York, and
yeah, I don't know. Like, so the whole idea is let's I don't know, actually have an honest election, and can we trust the? I feel so silly even saying it. Can we trust the government? Oh, on that note, I know where to go with that.
I'll tie it in. So 2020 was Dan Crenshaw, right?
Yeah,
Unity 2020.
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard and Dan
Yes,
Crenshaw.
I had no idea who he was until then. But I saw a quote, and I sent it to both of you, by Dan Crenshaw.
Hold on, can you address him by his proper name, please? Porn star hitman.
I do listen to that theme song now. It's on my lifting playlist.
MGK?
Yes.
Hold on
Kid
a
Rock?
second. Kid Rock, MGK. I got to interject here because I was having a few bourbons with some work guys, and we were just randomly BSing, and somehow MGK's name came up. And one of my coworkers, old ladies, used to date MGK. It was so weird. And he's like the most just like honest, mild man. Like,
well, yeah, I'm sure after
MGK,
dating MGK, she had to go.
Well, you know who he's
like
dating
that.
now, right?
Oh, Megan Fox.
Yes,
because we talked about that.
Oh, yeah,
I heard she's a little busted, is what the guys were saying.
She's hot as fuck.
She's psycho, I'm sure.
So, hot crazy Matrix.
Yeah,
just tapped it out. Yeah.
I think
it's an exponential.
She's hot enough that she can be crazy and it'll be fine.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean but every guy thinks it's great to bang a hot chick.
You don't have to marry her.
Yeah, but if you get that far Are you going to bang her? Is she going to stab you in the middle of the night? I don't know.
It's a risk I'm willing to take.
I was gonna say she's
As long as the blade's not over 6 inches, sign me up.
at least you're honest.
Yeah.
All right, porn star
I appreciate
hitman, the quote, Dan Crenshaw himself.
So it was about student debt.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that before, too.
Yeah, which you guys have talked. So I wrote down some things that have just been like little gems or little pearls that I think could really, I would just be interested in hearing you
Blocks
guys
of
deeper
coal,
into.
probably.
That too. There's some fuckery always, but so he said when you cancel student debt, you're saying a minority of people who had the advantage of obtaining a degree should have their debt paid off by hardworking taxpayers, 2/3 of whom don't have degrees themselves or have already paid their own student debt off. This is immoral. So I thought of that because Ant has mentioned his massive amount of debt, and at least one of the podcasts, and you have mentioned how you didn't go to college at all.
Right.
So I'm
Still
just
got that, though.
just curious about
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
about
right.
that. Yeah.
You want to start with that one, Fred, or you want me to start with that one?
I don't care. Either way.
I mean,
Are they going to pay my house off, too?
right? No, I mean, I think we feel the same way on this. So you hear both sides. So people are like, well, if you paid off the student loan debt, like it would stimulate the economy. Mm-hmm. But I've heard the counter argument to that the population that has student loan debt isn't the population that stimulates the economy. It's a lower socioeconomic class that when they have money, they inject it back into the economy. So, the people that pay off the student loans, they might save money. They might not go back out and spend it. The other thing too is it depends on how that, if let's say you forgave $10,000 or whatever, is that going to be taxable income too? Because then you're still going to have a tax liability. So then it's reducing the amount of money that's going to be injected back
It's like winning
into
a
the economy.
car off of like Wheel of Fortune.
Right? And then you can't
Here's a
afford the taxes.
$45,000 car.
Yeah, have fun paying $7,000 in taxes.
Yeah, that you don't have. That's why you're on Wheel of Fortune to begin with.
Yeah. So, but for me, yes, I do have, someone called a substantial amount. I mean, what I make now, I wouldn't consider a substantial amount, but it's still, it's a good amount. But I always looked at it as an investment into myself. When I went in and I took the loans, I didn't have, I guess you would say, like a financial education. It was kind of a sign on the dotted line. Here's money. We'll pay it back later. And I don't know if you chalk that up to parents. I don't know if you chalk that up to the school. I don't know what you chalk that up to. Hopefully now in school, they have some sort of a program where they can teach financial prudency or something to go, hey, these loans are pretty much with you for life. Like it's not 100% true that you can't file bankruptcy and have the loans wiped away, but it's very difficult to do that. And I don't think you should file bankruptcy. And even if I didn't know that I was signing those lines, I still take that on as my obligation, my responsibility. That's no one's. I wouldn't want someone to pay those loans. Do I want those loans paid off? Absolutely. But I think there's something that comes through the toil and the hardship and the sacrifice that you have to make, that journey, building that character when you pay those loans off, instead of someone just going, it's kind of like when, if someone gives you something and you don't have to work for it, you're not going to appreciate that as much. And so, even though I don't know that I was equipped with the knowledge to understand this debt's substantial, like this is a house for some people that I'm signing, my John Hancock on.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to pay this back.
A nice house sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I did understand that this is an investment in myself. And so I guess what better investment could you make in yourself, than an investment in yourself? Like it's whatever you put into it, you're going to get out of it. And so I was like, I'm willing to take that. So, but no, I don't think I get it. I mean, especially with the economy right now, people don't have jobs, but I think a lot of people were just very stuck on, this is my degree, I have to get this job. No, you need to learn the hustle game. Maybe you don't need to get a job, get a job somewhere else doing something. It doesn't mean it's permanent, it's temporary, and it's going to build some character that then when you get back into your other job, you're going to appreciate it more, and maybe you can bring a different perspective to it. Maybe you had to work in a skilled trade, and your job was a counselor, and you're counseling drug addicts, but you had no real experience with them. But when you went to the assembly line, you were working around people that were drug addicts. Now you can, you you have a different perspective on helping those
Yeah.
people. I think it's just the outlook,
Or
and the way
vice versa.
Yeah, yeah.
You started that you got to know those people, and then when you got to the point you get to treat them, you realize they're humans.
Yes.
How long did you work? Because when I met you, you were in school for your NP.
Yeah.
And then how long did you work with Rogue and what other companies before you started using your degree?
Well, if you ask Fred, I'm still not using my degree, but
No, you're using it. Yeah,
No, I know,
it sounds
I
like
know.
it sounds like you got a job.
No,
now.
I am now. It's 50, 60 hours a week, but it was a while. So, and for me, it was one of those things where I was like, well, I guess I got to pick. Like, you can't, there's no way I can do the two things. Hopefully I can invest in the one thing and it's going to pay dividends, in the long run. But yeah, I kind of got away from that. And it doesn't mean there weren't jobs, because there certainly were nurse practitioner jobs at the time.
Yeah, but they wanted you to work like normal hours.
Yeah, and I wasn't about that. So. But now I work like normal hours plus some. But it's all good. So yeah, it was probably like 2-ish, 3-ish years. And I would say I dabbled in it. I still volunteered with Rick at the clinic and stuff
Right.
like that. And but yeah, it was probably 2 to 3 years, and then I kind of got back into it. So, but yeah, I just think people are so afraid that, like, oh my gosh, I absolutely have to get a degree, or I have to get a job in whatever my degree was for, and that's not true. Like, if you need to live, like, you're going to do whatever it takes to live.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that comes down to me. So super big picture, institutionally, I think it's all screwed up. Whether you talk about the schools, teaching them some actual like financial prudency.
I feel like someone said that they're starting to teach some of that. So I don't know to what degree.
Well, at the same time, like I remember being in school, and I remember doing like I don't remember what they called it. There was some kind of acronym, or some kind of fun thing but they tried to teach us about the stock market.
Sure.
But it was like one class a month.
Yeah.
For like, it was like 3 hours like over the whole year when I was like in 4th grade or something. Like, come on. Like, so I think institutionally, like we're trained to, I have this degree, I have to go do this job. I got to go to high school, got to get good SAT scores, got to go to good college.
Sounds like convergent thinking, Fred.
Exactly. And I know we talked about that too. But so I think that institutionally, everything's screwed up. Our schools don't teach our kids what they really need to know. Everyone's so whatever. But at the same time, I didn't go to college. I used to say it was because I didn't have the opportunity to. I still think that's a big portion of it. But I mean, let's be honest. I use that as an excuse too. I'm sure I could have gone to college had I really, whether it be a community college or something I'm sure I could have done it. I ended up taking some college courses and stuff through some work programs and whatever. But, just being honest with my self. What was it last week you said to Joe? Your self-appraisal.
Yeah.
Being honest with my self-appraisal. I could have made it happen, I'm sure. I could have gone to college, some sort of form. But I learned that financial lesson when we were talking to Joe last week, the first time I bought a car from a dealer. Oh, now I understand. Oh, what do you got? What's Hayescraft and? Well, that one's Great Lakes. I'll take
Choose wisely.
I'll take this one. But I really learned a good financial lesson when I went and bought my first car from a dealership and realized how bad they fucked me. And it was like young kid, interest rate was through the fucking ceiling, but I needed a car. So I realized, and then years later, I'm like, okay, I get it now. Like I'm starting to see how this whole thing works. And I kind of see college in that way too. You can't tell me it cost a college, what, $50,000, $75,000 a year for one student to teach them how to be a shithead.
I mean, it does when your president makes $400,000 a year and everyone's salary just continually increases.
Yeah.
And then the books, you can't reuse the books because they come out new editions, and the teachers are the ones that wrote the books.
Right. So obviously there's some chicanery going on. I don't know if that's the right word. Fuckery, at least.
Fantastic word.
Yeah. But so to me, I think that's where it goes down to. And it's funny, it ties in, just because I'm thinking about it. I had a conversation with somebody this week, of somebody that I work with. And they are much like myself, where they, they worked hands-on, dirty jobs, working hard, minimum, 40 hours a week, from 7 to 5:30 every day, just weather, rain, shine, snow, whatever. But now they have a job that's a little more white collar.
Yeah.
And they talked about, being being in a blue collar world where, you got to get up. If you don't feel good, whatever. Doesn't matter if your piece of crap car broke down, you got to find a way to get to work because you got to pay the bills and you got to go to work. And when you go to work, it might be raining, it might be shitty, but I go to work every day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, sometimes 7, sometimes 10, 12, 14-hour days, because I don't have the capability of walking in somewhere and getting paid $100,000 off, because I have this degree or I have this, that, whatever. And, you kind of learn, I feel like there's once again, a general statement. There's kind of this divide between, the typical blue collar worker who works to survive.
Well,
But they understand hard work, dedication, because they got to go because they don't have a choice.
Sure.
But after a while, that in the off time, they realize, I need to enjoy my life while I got it, because I know Monday I got to go back to work so I can support my family. But, and they get put in some situations where it's, here's a job, you have to do it. And the faster and more efficiently you do it in, the better you're going to be. That's kind of as a blue collar worker, you kind of learn that, like, the more efficient you are when you go to work, the better your life is going to be, because that's what gets you the promotions and, the more pay because you're a good worker.
sounds like meritocracy.
Yeah, I know. That's such a disgusting word again.
Yeah.
But that's exactly
Get your filthy mouth out of here.
Yeah. But I think blue collar workers kind of understand that. And it hit me. I'm like, you're totally right. Like, when I said the more and more I understand this, like I'm using very general words here, so don't get too pissed at me. The more and more I become white collar, you realize how many motherfuckers in offices and how much time is wasted on the backs of all the blue collar people actually doing the job and actually doing the things that pay everybody else in the company. Because a lot of companies, they have their blue collar, they have their white collar. And no wonder the blue collar, especially the people that realize this, are so pissed off all the time. Like, I've been in office settings where there's people sitting around in offices literally just joking around all day long, not doing a damn thing. Like, what are you doing? What do you get paid to do?
Or meetings where nothing gets done.
Yeah,
how much money is just blown away?
There's so much time wasted, and those people get paid more than anybody else. Okay, and I get, like, because they're intellect or they're really good at this, that, whatever. I think people should be paid if they're good at those things, and a CEO should get paid a lot because there's a lot of stress, all these things. But it seemed like there's a higher appreciation for time when you actually have to go out there and work your dick off.
I can speak to both sides of that. Yeah, because dude, I've done both.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, dude, I have these calluses for a reason. But like, I sit in an office chair too, and so yeah. And I there's definitely parts of both that I appreciate, and then I'm like, I'm glad I don't have to do that.
Yeah. But it makes you, to me, like, I guess coming from both ends, and I can see both ends now too, where it makes me appreciate the people out there doing that hard work because I know what it takes.
Yeah.
And it also makes me appreciate what I have and to be able to be efficient and just get stuff done and go, okay, what's next?
So why the hell don't we pay them more money then?
Because they don't have to.
Yeah.
Because you have to go to college to get paid money, Tony.
Oh,
there it is, full circle. You have to go. You have to have a piece of paper.
That's what our guidance counselors told us. They said, you need to go to college and you'll get a job.
Yep. And and that's exactly why I turned into a shithead in high school. Because I realized by my sophomore year, I'm not going to college. I can't go. I can't. My mom can't afford for me to go to college. How am I going to go to college?
Yeah.
And they're like, I'd be, why are we doing this? Well, because you have to get this so you can go to college. Yeah, I'm not going to college. Well, you might. No, fuck you. No, I'm not going to college. So I did the bare minimum, what I had to do to pass, and I figured out what do I have to do to not be in this school as much as possible. So for kids like me, they turn away from it even more from schooling.
Which sucks, man, because think about if someone would have said, okay, he's not meant for college. Number one, you don't have to go to college to succeed. That is absolutely ridiculous. Like skilled trade, there's still a very large deficit. And some of the absolute wealthiest people I know never went to college. They learned a trade. They got very good at it. They paid attention to the things that, the company they worked for did very well. And then they recognized the deficits and where they needed improvement. And they started their own company. And they did phenomenal. But I'm just thinking of what if someone would have recognized that, man? And not that you're not doing good now, but like if someone could have seen that and said, you know what, Fred's not college material, but hey, let's give him some different options. Let's go, hey, here's what a pipeliner does. Here's what an electrician does. Here's what a plumber does. And, what if someone would have poured into you because they saw that you were like not interested in these things that were college based, but interested in these things that were more mechanical.
You mean like a guidance counselor?
Yes. I mean
I feel like a lot of this is being put on the school, and let's be realistic, they can only do so much.
Sure.
A lot of this needs to be put on parents.
No, it does. I agree, but I think what I'm saying, it comes back to institutionally. I think institutionally things need to change. That was my point for all of that rambling.
And equally, I think they need it. But how much time did kids spend at school? I mean, was it 6 hours, 8 hours a day?
Yeah, I mean 6, 7 hours.
And then
a
you
day.
do your activities, or you're in a sports program, so it becomes 9 and 10. And so, I think if you look at how the time is divided up, like, if you're going to spend this much time here, then someone needs to tell you that. You're going to spend that much time at home, someone needs to tell you that. And maybe you're not getting it at home. But at school, at least you can get it there. That's so true. I'm not saying, hey, the full burden lies on the school, because it doesn't.
Because they can't.
It doesn't. Like you're a parent. These are your kids. You need to take care of them. You need to guide them in life. So
how did you get into the Career Center? Because you technically did do a trade there.
Yeah, you know why I went to the Career Center?
No.
Because I heard senior year you can do a half day and go to work and not go to school. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Because I know in my mind I wasn't going to college. So I was like, all right, well, what can I go to the Career Center for?
So it wasn't somebody at the school promoting the Career Center as a different option? Because a lot of people take that.
No, from my recollection, it was nothing to do. I wasn't like guided in that direction. I remember looking through all the the Career Center things, and I just kind of I'm trying to remember which came first. I can't remember exactly which came first. I remember I started working for an excavation company, and I don't know which. Like I said, I don't know which came first, chicken and egg. But I knew, all right, the trade that I went into the Career Center for, it was the most diverse I could find as far for my area. It was, they called it building specialties, because they even had because I looked at mechanics. I was like, well, I kind of know mechanics and welding and all. They have so many specialized things. And they even have a carpentry. They even had a carpentry class. But I remember there was one that was for building specialties. So they were supposed to cover carpentry, electrical, plumbing, masonry, roofing, all the things. And I'm like, well, that sounds the broadest. Might learn some stuff. Sounds like it might not be too terrible. So I went and did that. And then since I was working for an excavation company that we did basements and drainage, that technically fell in my career category. So I could work, or I could go to school until 10, 11 o'clock and see you later. Like, I'm going to work, or whatever. To me, it was just the easiest way out, because I was like, this is stupid. This isn't worth my time. I told you the story. I don't know how many times. Going my sophomore year, I I had to choose. You have to choose your classes for next year. And they're like, well, and I didn't choose a math class because I had already had all the math credits. Because I even knew then, by my sophomore year, I knew what credits I had to have to graduate, the minimum, and I just wanted to make sure that I fulfilled the minimum. Just get me out of here. And I didn't sign up for a math class for my junior year. And they're like, hey, you have to sign up for a math class. I said, no, I don't. Like, I already have all my math credits. They're like, no, you have to have a math class your junior year. I'm like, well, that's kind of stupid. Like, why do I? There's like, you just have to have a math class for your junior year. So I signed up for Algebra 2, the one I just like aced in my sophomore year. So I'm like, all right, I'll just do this again. And they let me do that. And I remember sitting in my Algebra 2 class at the Career Center, which the year prior I literally aced. I come out like, it was like maybe it was like halfway through the year. I'm walking down and the teacher's like called me over. She's like, Fred, you haven't turned in a single piece of homework all year long. And I was like, yeah, I agree. And she's like, you ace every single test. I'm like, uh-huh, I agree on that too. She's like, you have a C+. I said, okay. She was like, do you realize that even if you just turned your homework in, you'd be acing this class? And I go, whoa. I said, is a C, is that passing? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, good enough. And I literally turned around and walked away. I was like, that's all I'm here for. Like, don't bother me with that, like trying to ace classes. And that was the mentality I had because I saw, why am I doing this? Well, you're going to high school so you can go to college. Well, I'm not going to college. What the fuck am I supposed to do? Well, you should try to go to college. It's kind of like how we had the discussion, or maybe it's Caleb I always yell at about the like, why do we do it this way? Well, that's just kind of always the way we've done it. No, that's a fucking terrible excuse. Like that's an excuse. That's all it is. That's not a reason. Like, why are we doing the things just because that's the way they've always been done?
That's the way convergency works.
You and your convergency.
Oh, I hate convergency.
I have divergent thinkers on here. And
that's
I'm going to tie that right in.
No, that's what this is all about. So
yeah,
that's the whole, like you were saying, institutional needing to be changed. And hey, instead of having to like solve a math problem one way, like why wouldn't we encourage you to try and solve it however you can get the correct answer? Because
right, all by yourself.
Yeah, that's going to facilitate other forms of thinking in life. Because think about it. Imagine if every single problem in life had to be solved in this same exact way.
A lot of people think that. I think that's one of our biggest problems today. In general, just as a human populace, they think there's only one way to correct or fix or do things. That's why people hate each other, right? Because they disagree with how to correct or do or think. I mean, isn't that really what it boils down to?
Maybe.
I mean, obviously there's some other factors
True.
in there, but if you really want to boil it down, it's because people disagree. Well, that's not the right way. That's not the best way. That's not how you do that. You can't think like that. You can't say that. Why? Well, because it's wrong. Well, what do you wrong? What's wrong even mean?
Yeah, wrong to you might not be wrong to me.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things we'll even go this way. Gravity. Gravity's gravity. That's the core staple of physics, right? Newton's laws. You can't. Right? You can't. There's nothing it's infallible, right? Newton's laws and gravity, of course.
I mean, maybe here.
Well, you look at, they've established in the recent years, anti-gravity is a thing. There is a thing called anti-gravity.
Sure.
You say that 100 years ago? You cutting out?
Yeah, I think so.
Those are your headphones. Ooh, I keep banging this thing. What's this? There you go.
Wow. There we go. I can hear it.
Yeah. Tapped it.
I can hear
But
it.
like but if you said that 100 years ago, you would have been, take us back to the Salem witch trials.
Or
If they sink, well, or if they float, they're a witch.
Yeah.
If they sink, well,
We done fucked up.
Guess they weren't a witch, but
Yeah.
hey, at least we know they weren't a witch. Like, what the fuck's that supposed to, you know what I mean? So I think that's a big thing is people don't, we never look into the past and go, all right, people bring up these new ideas and new this, that, whatever, or, whatever, fucking aliens or whatever it might be. Well, that's crazy. Well, like we talked about Einstein used to be crazy. People thought Einstein was off his fucking rocker.
Yeah.
And now they're still trying to prove some of his theories wrong today, and they can't.
True.
And people say, oh, there's no such thing as gravity is always gravity. If you don't believe in gravity, if you disagree with, it's 100% infallible, then you're crazy. Well, now they have anti-gravity. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, I guess this is a thing. Like we don't know shit. But how do you allow that divergent?
You don't put kids in a box, man. I understand, like, they get their funding a certain way through the state and all that stuff, and they have to meet these metrics, but, like, I don't know. But then, you let them outside of the box too much, and you got evergreen.
I don't think that is. I will disagree with that.
Hold on. Pause that. I got to use the restroom real quick. Get that thought.
We're pausing.
Yeah, so we were talking about how to promote that divergent thinking, and I said, if you go too far outside of the box,
right.
I said,
Evergreen.
you think it'll end up as evergreen? And you said no, and I'm not saying it always ends up like that because I love divergent thinking. Man, I'm like a outside of the box, like let's see what you can come up with. So, and maybe that circumstance was different. Maybe it was completely different.
So that's why I think it goes back to the institutional thing Dale said. I think with that, and obviously once again, we just got done talking about how I didn't go to college. So I can't say because I haven't recently gone through the institution that is universities. But I've heard enough people talk about it. I've seen it in daily life with that age group of folks, and enough to go,
God, you make yourself sound old as fuck, Fred.
well, I didn't just get out of college. You know
No,
what I
I
mean?
know.
Going through college.
As I'm older than you over here, I'm just joking.
Right. But what I'm saying is, I've seen enough of it and seen enough concern
Sure.
for myself to go, okay, maybe there's a concern here. I'm not saying completely outright that I know that universities are turning college students into, Lenin Marxists or, Marxist Leninist, whatever, Yaoism or Maoism, not Yaoism, Maoism, whatever.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I know that for sure because I didn't go through it. But there's enough concern there for me to go, I wonder what the legitimacy is to this. And the fact that, these things are kind of tied together in a strange way. So that's where I think institutionally, it seems like they have the bumpers up on the lane to kind of keep people where they're at. And I guess it kind of even goes back to, I remember the one time I texted you, I think it was at the Eric Weinstein podcast I was listening to, and he was talking about quantum physics and different things, and he was kind of explaining that and discussing sciences and the atom and how. And I learned in school there's an atom, there's a proton, there's a neutron, there's an electron.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more shit than that in an atom, apparently. Like, there's all these things out there that schools aren't teaching kids about that are things. They're real things.
Yeah.
With not helicoils. I can't remember what they call them. There's something. There's multiple different things, and then go look it up. I don't know that much about it. Obviously, I'm not a quantum physicist or
Cassie, get on the computer.
Yeah, but
Do your job, damn it.
there's a ton of things. Like, there's not just protons, neutrons, and electrons.
Yeah.
There's always additional things out there that kids aren't learning about, that I didn't learn about, and that they had discovered prior to when I learned about them. So, okay, what's that? What's the deal with that? And there's anti-gravity, there's black holes, there's antimatter. Go down the rabbit hole on that one. Like, if these aren't things that science refutes, they are things that, science clearly says, yes, there is anti-gravity, there is antimatter out in space. You know, all these things are real things. And the person interviewing was like, well, why are we learning this stuff in schools? Like, is it just because it's too complicated? Because quantum physics is...
Yeah, but too complicated for who, though?
Right. So
like, who decided it was too complicated?
That was Eric Weinstein was like, no, it's not. He said, because especially quantum physics, that it would really jive well. He didn't say jive.
Sure.
Basically, with some students that are very abstract thinkers.
Yeah,
because
the outside the box thinkers.
Right, because quantum physics is really
probably
difficult
the
to understand.
ADHD kids would go, oh, this shit's sweet.
Right, and like different art, like, you know, kids that are really abstract, or, you know, they have, because it kind of goes back to all the human, like us as human beings, like we're not all the same. We don't all think the same, and we don't all understand things the same or see things, or, you know, all that stuff. So when we try to teach everybody the same, well, what do you expect? So it just kind of goes back to, that's what it was. Eric, he was like, no, he's like, it's not difficult.
Yeah.
It's not because it's so hard to understand. It's because it challenges the hierarchy of the educational system. And that was one, like I told you I was listening to that podcast. I was like, literally, I was in my truck and I remember exactly where I was at. I was like half a mile from my house getting ready to pull in. And I heard him say that after like 50 minutes of him talking about quantum physics and all these things that I didn't really understand. I was just getting little pieces and parts of it. And those are like little victories for me when I can understand little things like that. But when he said that like, no, it's not because it's too difficult, because it is difficult, but it's because, you know, the kids understanding it, you know, that it's just a challenge to the hierarchy system of education, and that it goes into the universities and all those things. And I was just like, I literally was in my truck. I was just like, fuck, like what? Like just blew my mind that it like all just kind of came together. I think to me, that's the box that educational systems put on people. I don't know how you get away from that. Like, how do you teach kids about, you know, let alone how to do your goddamn taxes or any of, you know, the things that'll actually make you successful.
Sure.
Was he talking about college level and certain?
Oh, he was talking about high school too. Like introducing these things in the high school level.
Because how many kids are going to be like you and fuck that? Why? I don't need to know that.
Yeah, but
maybe they did talk about it and all you heard was
no.
And they were like,
no, because it was something I'd never heard about before. Like there's, and it's I won't even get into quantum physics things, but it's just so much that like
I know, but I'm hearing you and I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm thinking of Mariola with the.
I also, yes, that popped in.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, man, what if these kids that have, and I'm not saying that like ADHD isn't a real thing, but I'm like, what if these kids are just bored?
Exactly. That's
and
how
like,
I was a lot
like,
in school.
Yeah, with math, like, what if this, you know, quantum physics and the Hopf molecule.
the Hopf theory. Yeah.
What if that's exactly what they need? And then who the hell knows what they'll go on to become? Like,
exactly.
Like maybe they'll create some incredible, like maybe they already have some crazy propulsion system, or like, you know, I don't know. Like,
we can.
you see me drop that there?
I'm gonna save that.
I tease you, Fred.
Yeah, but I think maybe it's so to me. Maybe that's what it is. It's, you know, like you put. I don't know why I always use Albert Einstein, isn't because everyone knows him, I guess.
True.
You put Einstein in a high school class right now, and you take away his rebelness. You know, everyone has these features, but to be able to be a genius, or to be able to, not even a genius where you understand a lot of things, but maybe certain people obviously have certain attributes. That they're really good at this, or they're really good at that. They're really good at numbers, or they're really good at, you know, this physical activity, or they're really good at colors, or, you know, drawing, or whatever it be. People have these certain knacks for certain things, and if those people don't have the additional pieces to understand that, or to individually understand that, hey, this is the path I need to go down, then how are they ever going to get there? Especially if they're not allowed to even go there through their whole juvenile, like, period, where they think they got to go to college and this, and, you know, maybe maybe I'd take some personal aggression towards that because that's how it was for me. Like, this is stupid. Why the fuck am I doing this?
Yeah.
Like, this is just a waste of my time. Get me out of here. But if certain areas, maybe if they did things a little different, maybe other people would be triggered in different ways, in a good way.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Triggered.
To go down a certain path. Like,
Calm down, Karen.
yeah, like, I don't have to do that. Like, I think a perfect point, at least for me, was I remember in language arts or whatever they called it, whenever I was, told to write an essay or something like that. And if it was, they gave you the subject you had to write it on, terrible. I'd get like a C. But if I was allowed to choose my own subject, like there was times I got papers like back and the teacher would be like, "You're a really good writer. Like, you really impressed me." And I was like, "Well, yeah, because you let me do what the fuck I wanted to." Like, when you make people do things they don't want to do, yeah, they're not going to be excited about them. They're not going to be energized. They're not going to want to consider it. They're not going to want to put the thought and time into it. So when we make all of our kids go through the same thing, it's just cows through the chute. Stick in your box.
I think that's why a lot of parents do homeschooling.
And I feel like
Because they see the value. They see either they didn't have a good experience having to be stuck in the local school box, or one of them had a hard time in it, or they just didn't want their child to have to go through that. And I mean, it makes sense. I used to think homeschooling was so weird. Now that we have a little one, it really makes sense.
it really does, especially if you're level-headed enough to teach your kid all the things.
You have to outweigh
You
it,
have the
though.
time. Yeah, because that's the social impact
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Like, Kai's got to go to school. I just hope that here we can just open things up so that she can see a different perspective than just the path that they're being taught at school. And we can, it falls on us to show her the things that the school's not doing, whether it's their job or our job,
Right.
trying to fill in that gap because she needs that social aspect.
Yeah, and some people do.
I feel like we need some teachers on.
I think it'd be a really good idea.
Yeah, because I don't know what they're teaching kids these days. So it'd be interesting to kind of find that out and to learn a little bit and see if, maybe things have shifted. Maybe it's not as confined. Maybe they're letting them think outside the box more. They're giving them a little more leeway, or maybe they're not.
Or teaching them something more productive. Or,
Well, it doesn't sound like the teachers have a lot of leeway
No,
to
I don't.
teach
I
the
don't.
way.
No.
hence the
And so that makes
hierarchy of
it-
the educational system.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
makes it difficult. But I also think that kids and adults need to have some sort of structure. We have talked about it, and we have had difference in opinions, especially about the ADHD and how you want to let them run free and have their own way of thinking, because obviously they're going to produce results in a completely different way. But at some point, they need to have some sort of traditional structure if they want to be able to fit into this society, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's social cues. So
No, it's just, I remember we were talking about it, and it was someone with ADHD who had never had a normal 8-to-5 job because they just knew it wasn't going to work for them.
Right.
They could not be held to that structure. But as an adult, that was becoming difficult because they needed to show up as a parent, and that is very structured.
Right.
Kids have schedules, spouses have schedules. So there was a conflict because they had created a life for themselves that fit their personality, which is fantastic because not everyone has the wherewithal to do that.
Right.
Or the ability to do that, and they made sure they created that for themselves. But now that they have a family and they have structure in this society, there was conflict in trying to show up and be a spouse or be a parent in a structured society that they're participating in. And so it is very difficult to convince society that this isn't the only way to do things, and still be a part of it because you have family and loved ones, and it's super hard and interesting all at the same time.
Well, that's where I think is a cool, maybe a thought experiment or something, is the idea that, like, we are in a society. Well, that's just structured by other human beings. It's just another structure of what we've built. Like, people are being forced to participate in it, in a sense. You know, you can not participate to some degree if you want to or don't want to, but it's kind of that trade-off. Or, okay, do I want to participate in society? Do I want to pretend to be a good citizen, or this, that, whatever, or a husband or a wife or a parent, like, and fill these societal norms? You know, you can make that. People can make that decision. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to, quote unquote, live off the grid, away from governmental influences. But it's one of those things where, all right, when you're entering that, place of society, you have to live by their rules, or you're a dick. Like, I wouldn't go over to, some country that doesn't speak any English and be pissed off at them because they don't understand me or I don't understand them. Kind of the same thing. Like, you put yourself, if you're putting yourself into a position, then okay, then there's some guidelines that you're agreeing to live by. Whether they're good or bad or right or wrong, that's irrelevant. But you're stepping into that and agreeing to it. But, how do you realize, I guess, maybe bring it back, that if you don't think those societal, quote unquote, societal norms are right or good, and be a divergent thinker, Tony, how do you do that? Because you keep bringing up this whole divergent thinking all the time. You never tell me how to fucking do it.
Maybe I want to keep it a secret because I don't want that many divergent thinkers out there because they're successful.
Well, in episode 7, you asked Fred how to become a divergent thinker.
Yeah.
And he said, which is like the theme of every episode or somehow ties
Chronically
in,
curious.
to be honest to yourself,
Yeah.
which then lets you be honest with others. But then it's just left blank. So one of my things was, well, how do you go from that to actually thinking differently than the way that you were taught or raised, whether it be parents, family, who you're surrounded by? You can be honest with yourself and others and still say, what the fuck am I supposed to do now?
So I think for me, it was just a game. Like, in terms of, you're going to make me think in this convergent manner. Like, I have to do this. Cool, I'll do it. But you know what? I'm going to go above and beyond that. And I'm still, like, I'm still going to think how I'm going to think. Like, I'm going to go do my own research. I'm going to think outside this box. I'm going to do those things. Could I do more of that if I wasn't constrained by the convergent thinking? Absolutely. But I understand the game. I understand what I have to do to get the certain grades to graduate and whatever. But this is me. This is who I am. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to read my own books. I'm going to look up words that I don't know. I'm going to look up these different concepts. I'm going to, dip my feet in the water and try a bunch of different things. I mean, that's what I did. And I'm not saying that's the way to do it.
Yeah, so I guess I've never really. How do you get other people to do that?
I mean,
not that everyone wants to do that.
Yeah, because I was lazy. I didn't realize I was lazy, but I just did whatever they told me to do.
I mean,
I didn't want to do extra work. I didn't want to pick up extra books and look up extra words.
Yeah, but going back to what I was saying, if they didn't force you to do that, you wouldn't have been what you said, quote unquote, lazy. And I don't know that you were lazy. I think that you just said, well, this is what they're telling me to do. Like, I'm going to do it. But if they gave you, an opportunity to do things a little bit differently, to come to, a solution or to a conclusion in a different manner, that, like, maybe you would be more of a divergent thinker.
More independence to figure out.
Yeah, and so maybe it's kind of a revamping of the educational paradigm, if you will. And, I understand the whole funding, the whole, like, we have to have things in a certain way, so we have metrics and we can measure this. But I guess I don't understand, like, what are you measuring? If you have the answer that's correct, regardless of how you came to that conclusion or that answer, like, I guess why does it matter? I would rather have 10 people that got the same answer, but they 10 different ways than 10 different people that came to the same, got the same answer or conclusion in 10 of the same ways. Because, dude, when you're on the job force, how many times are you like, yeah, that's not going to work? Who's got something different? Who's got another way to do this? So if we're constantly being, forced to think in one damn manner, how's anyone going to come up with something original? Right. But if you have 10 people coming up with all these different ideas and you come to something that's successful, like, holy smokes, imagine what that company could do.
Mm-hmm. And that's a conversation I've had a lot recently. Not exactly that, but the idea that the different thinking and the new ideas, like everyone, it goes back to well, why do we do it this way? Well, this is how we've always done it. Wrong fucking answer. Give me the reason. Because every single, I think I even mentioned, I said something to you earlier today about a business owner or doing something and being successful. Well, like every, was it not every original idea is a good idea.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But all good ideas at one point were original ideas.
Yeah.
Because you found a way to improve the idea that came before it.
Yeah.
Like, you go back to fucking the Wright brothers. People thought they were fucking crazy as hell.
Oh yeah.
They probably thought they were high in more ways than one. Ha ha.
Dad jokes for days.
But you know what I mean? Like without someone going, man, I bet if I strap this to my back and jump off this sand dune, this could be totally sweet. Who knows? They might have been like Johnny Knoxville and fucking Steve-O and just accidentally flew.
Just full archaic jackass.
And all of a sudden they're like, oh, would you look at that? Like, you know what I mean? Like all these new things that we have and that we do. And, every single time people quote unquote get better, it's because somebody came up with a new idea. Not because someone kept doing it the way they kept doing it forever and ever and ever. Like, we don't float around and, there's not a whole lot of giant wooden ships anymore with sails. Sure, it's fun for nostalgia reasons. And if you want to, grab your sextant and, go find your way in the seas. But, we got motors. Like I remember one time I had a boss who was like, I don't know why. He was an old school guy. I don't know why you need all this new equipment, this, that, whatever, blah, 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 whatever. It's like, yeah, well, we used to use this too, bro. We didn't used to have motors and all this thing like,
yeah, Conestoga wagons.
Yeah. Like we're driving in cars and stuff now. We're not riding around on horseback for the most part. It's fun to do, I guess, but.
Bro, I don't know about you. I'm flying around in Tic Tacs. What's up?
Ooh. Okay, Fred. No, I told you we're suck. See, now let's keep talking about aliens. I told Dune we'd save it for him.
We'll save it for him.
You're still going to filter it in. It's still going to make it.
Yeah. I just started listening to another podcast about guys that there's some weird stuff going on about that too. But
yeah,
we'll talk about that. We can talk about
Tone,
that.
I'm on the computer, right? I'm listening to my training that I have to do.
This is the yoga training?
No, this was for mobility training. It was like prerequisite classes that I had to take. So I had to pause it for something. Fred and Kai are watching Ancient Egypt or something. No, listen, just shut the fuck up for a second.
Two different things.
So they're watching
right there.
they're watching whatever. I pause it and I hear Kyrie go, aliens. And I are you serious right now? Because it's not really aliens. She just thinks it's aliens. And Kyrie goes, aliens. I was like, I just had to hit play again.
Sounds like some divergent thinking to me.
Yeah.
I said, no wonder Ann doesn't want you to talk about aliens.
No, for the record, we were watching Magical Egypt with John Anthony West, which is not Ancient Aliens. Those are two different things.
I said Ancient Egypt. which you do watch.
Which is also, no, it's wrong.
Said not ancient aliens. Are these like new age aliens?
No, it's magical
You got
Egypt.
some aliens at raves? Like, what are we?
No, she goes over to Grandpa's house and I've watched Ancient Aliens before too. I'm not gonna say it's kind of like the Kardashians for me, where I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous, but it's really
entertaining.
It's entertaining.
It's your guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Entertaining.
So, but she's watched that. But I was actually watching Magical Egypt, which is they're archaeologists and stuff, just talking about the history of Egypt.
Indiana Jones, bro.
No, god damn it!
I'm just playing.
Oh,
I'm joking.
just saying. John Anthony West doesn't think they were aliens either.
Kyrie does.
What do you mean either? No one said they didn't think they weren't aliens, did they? I didn't know that there was a hard line in the sand drawn.
I'm just saying. No, I was saying she was talking about Ancient Aliens.
Oh, I got you.
Because the show
I got
Ancient
you.
Aliens on Discovery Channel really takes the aliens made Egypt dive and
Got you.
Göbekli Tepe and the Mayan stuff.
Yeah.
And John Anthony West was more of a scholar. Doesn't really think they're aliens, but it's super interesting. But I don't even know what. See, I don't even know where. I don't even remember what I was talking about now.
I'll interject. So back to divergent thinkers. I was notified over the last night, the night before, whatever, that I've listened to 16,555 minutes of podcasts on Spotify this year. So until you two started talking about this whole setup, I didn't know who Jordan Peterson was, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the Weinstein brothers. I have now watched both of them. Weinstein. Oh, yeah. Weinstein. I
Yeah.
knew I remember. Yeah.
Only that
Or
creep is
Jocko.
Weinstein.
Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah.
So I didn't know who any of them were, but you guys talk about them, Sprinkleman and Jocko, all the time. So, and you mentioned a book, Andy. You said you read it like once a year?
Yeah.
Sometimes more than that. So how did you guys stumble upon these people who are all very, I would say, divergent thinkers, even if they're kind of in the same realm together?
I mean, they all disagree.
Because Naval I would say, is completely different than
Yeah.
them. So you talk about them a lot, and I feel like I only know more about them because we discuss them often, or you send me podcasts that I listen to or whatever. And you read books that are different now just in the last couple of months. And they like pop up now. I just got an email last month, and it was a Neil deGrasse Tyson quote in the beginning. And I was like, I didn't know who that guy was. So just how do you go from, I think that's one way to go from this way of thinking to being a divergent thinker, is engrossing yourself in different.
Surrounding yourself with other divergent thinkers.
Yeah, but why these guys? Not all of them. Just pick one. I mean, I know I hear Peterson. I've listened to multiple different podcasts with him, and we have his book. But how did you stumble on these people, and why have they made an impact?
You want to take that one first? Because I always
Yeah, no, I'll take
diarrhea
it.
mouths.
Diarrhea mouth, Jesus. I think for me, they were just like, they're people that are constant learners. And so something my grandpa like always subscribed to was just constant learning. And I have always been a learner. Like, I find many things fascinating, and I think that's how you grow as a person, and you don't become, stagnant in your body and your body of thoughts. It's just that constant learning. And so all these guys are learning. That said, there's obviously other people that I don't subscribe to that are constantly learning. I think all these people have like a level of, I don't want to say all. I don't want to employ some fallacies here, sweeping generalizations or hasty generalizations, but
That's my job.
it's no one's job here. But they're all like pretty respectful, like decently, like secure with who they are. They've kind of like found themselves. They all seem to be like pretty patriotic, if you will. And I don't just mean like patriotic in the sense of like, hey, we're Americans, but like they have like a respect for mankind in general.
Peterson's not even American.
Yeah, he's Canadian. So
I was going to say, he became popular based on at least the first things that I listened to, because he was arguably not respectful. Same thing
Very
with
controversial.
the
True.
Weinstein.
Stein.
Weinstein. Why do I keep saying that?
Yeah, it happened.
Weinstein.
Yeah,
It was your
and
fault.
you said arguably, so like I guess arguably in the sense of like who's saying, are we talking about the progressive that doesn't think
Well,
they're arguably?
I say arguably because I've heard
arguments against
the arguments against him,
Yeah.
but I have also
Right.
listened to what he is saying, and I feel that.
Yeah, we got the snowflake culture that goes, oh, I can't,
Yeah, I
can't listen
feel
to
like-
this person, they challenge me or they don't agree with everything that I say. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what another big thing is the fact that they challenge people. Like, it doesn't mean that everything they say is right, but like, they're going to introduce some interesting ideas
Yeah.
and they're going to make
Mm-hmm.
you think and they're going to make you question, why do you think what you think? And, you know, I guess specifics like Jocko, like the leadership thing is very big to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just I think in general, like you said, they're respectful.
Yeah, they're very respectful, man. Like, and just real quick, man, that's something my grandfather always said. He was like, listen, you don't have to, like, as long as you can sit down and you can be respectful through your dialogue, which is exactly what we've aimed to do here with whoever we bring on, like, you're going to grow. You're going to learn something. Like, you're going to contribute to society and mankind. And I feel like that's what they do. I know a lot of people disagree and be like, oh, they have these ideas that are radical. They have these ideas that are blah, blah, blah. But like, you don't have to adopt those ideas. You don't have to agree with those ideas, but they're still respectful and they still respect your ideas, just like we respect anybody's ideas that are sitting at this table. So
Yeah,
please
no,
continue.
absolutely. And I think that's what got me started. You know, I think we've talked about this a little bit. You know, the impetus of this, even right here, was 2020, and I think we talked about it on an early podcast, Tony. I was getting the stock market. I started learning about that, and just had a little extra time on my hands, so I was, you know what, like, instead of wasting all this time doing whatever I've been doing, with my spare time the last, 30 years, so I started just learning stuff. And then I've always been curious, and I've always kind of, gotten very hyper-focused on certain things as I go. But I remember with all these people, I think really, for me, it was Peterson got my mind really churning. I was on social media one day and saw a little clip of him. And so I don't remember where I saw it. I was just kind of scrolling through, and I started listening to him, and he was having an interview with some person. And I remember thinking, like, as he's talking, and this was, I think it was kicked off. So for people who don't know, Peterson was I don't know, but he was a university professor, and Canada was kind of writing into some laws about using pronouns and different things for transgender folks. And he said, look, like, I'm not going to be compelled to do this legally. Like, you can't legally force me to change the way I speak. So that's kind of where it got him into some hot water. But I remember at one point he was doing this interview, and this is kind of where I came across him on social media, and he was doing an interview, and constantly I was beeping over there. I don't know what that was. That was weird. Why is it beeping?
It sounds like a notification.
Yeah, but nothing's coming up. I don't know. Seems to be working. Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Anyways, so she kept kind of pushing back on him because she would ask this question, he had this answer, and I'm like, ooh, like, bro, you kind of said something controversial right there. And then I was like, how's he going to get out of this one? I expect it to be a video, because everything you see on social media is always very clearly a one-sided narrative for the most part, whether it be, whatever it is, business or this, that, whatever, conservative, Democrat, liberal, whatever it is. There's always, people aren't going to post stuff typically to give two sides of an argument. It's always one-sided. That's how it always works. But I remember hearing him say something and going, ooh, like, that was pretty, that's pretty rough. Like, how are you going to get out of that one? And then the lady would ask him a question or whatever, and he was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. And he would explain it again. And he would say something else. And every single time he kept saying something, it was like, ooh, that's harsh. But then his explanation of it would be like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. Or, oh, well, that was a really good explanation. You know, you come across with this harsh idea, and typically, especially now, instantly people just are so willing to throw stones and just willing to write, you know, cancel on this, that, whatever, blah, blah. And no one ever gets a chance to explain themselves. And the way he did it, it was like, oh, okay. And he never lost his temper. He never, you know, resorted to name calling. You know, he never, you know, stormed off of an interview. It was, he explained his point of view. He explained why he had that point of view, and he gave reasons for it, and he articulated it extremely well. And it was like, oh, this guy seems really interesting. Like he has a theoretically controversial point of view, but he explains it really well. And it's really not that controversial when you take the time to understand what he's saying. And people don't give other people time to do that these days. Not everybody, but I think that's something that, because it's so quick. So I think that was what got me into, you know, going down the Peterson path. And like Tony said, like, I'm not necessarily going to subscribe to everything these people say, but if you take any time and listen to, you know, I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there as well, you know, like Eric and Brett Weinstein and Jordan Peterson, and, you know, there's Jocko. Like, I disagree with some of the things Jocko said, or how Jocko would handle some things, but we're different people. And the same thing with, you know, Brett and Eric Weinstein, and, you know, even, I remember I told you, and I was talking to Tony about it too a little bit, that even with Joe, I sat down and at one point, like, I kind of struggled with it until I realized later that, like, oh, no, I just disagree with his viewpoint on that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, but we didn't get upset. We didn't, like, you know, scream and try to cancel each other, you know, anything like that. And there wasn't, and Tony even said, he's like, I didn't even know what you're talking about, because it wasn't apparent. It was like, I didn't realize it till later, but all these people that really got me down this path, like we've been talking about, and Naval, like, just clean cut, like almost cryptic messages that he has, but they're all very objective about it. And I don't know, and they use their words concisely, and it's thought out and thorough, and it's not, they're not trying to be contentious for the purpose of being contentious. They're just, hey, here's a thought. This is kind of what I'm thinking. This is why. And a lot of people don't have thorough thoughts like that, as thought out as some of these people. And it's like, oh, like, they can be respectful and still disagree. And to me, it was like, oh, that's respectable. If someone can be respectful and still disagree and still, you know, carry on. So to me, it's really hard for, you know, because Peterson particularly is extremely controversial to a lot of people. And, like, there's people out there that are like, ugh, if you even read Peterson's work, Jordan Peterson, if you even listen to him, give him time of the day, like, you're some kind of alt-right Nazi fascist crazy person, this, that, whatever. It's like, well, why the fuck would I even take a second to listen to you now? Because you just instantly attacked me without even having any kind of idea of what I think about what Peterson talks about. You know, just because, like, I read, like, I told people that on social media, like, I follow Fox News. Guess what? I also follow MSNBC and CNN, and I follow third, you know, independent journalists. I follow all sides of things because I want to know all sides of things. And I'll be honest, there's some accounts that I follow and some people and some news that I read just to understand, all right, what's their narrative today?
True.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, all right, I want to know I want to know the conservative narrative because there is one. I want to know the liberal narrative because there is one. I want to know the democratic narrative because those two things are different. I want to know where all these different people are coming from so you can fill in the blanks.
Sounds like learning, Fred.
It's fascinating. And I think maybe even part of it too went back to when remember like when Michael Cohen was sitting in front of the, I think was it a grand jury or whatever,
Yeah.
before he got sent to prison. Like that was when maybe there was a tiny little spark that started inside me. I don't know what it was. I was at work and I didn't have anything else to do, so I started listening to it. And then I was like, well, I was in my office, so I started putting on my phone and I started watching it. It was better than reality TV. Like, it was insane. Like, some of these things, like, you watch the Republicans sitting up there, and, like, the Democrats are doing a really good job. They're asking these questions, this, that, whatever, and the Republicans were just freaking out, and they're like, why should we trust you? You're a fucking liar, blah. Like, they're freaking out. I'm like, these are, like, people of Congress, like, losing their minds. I'm like, who needs Kardashians when you got this? And then that's what started me down the road of, like, man, politics are wild. But there's so much to try to keep up with. But I don't know, it's just interesting to hear respectable people disagree. Maybe that's what it is. Sorry, full circle there. Coming back to it, I think that's why those people have been kind of a focal point, just because it's like they can be respectful but disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously there's plenty of other respectful people that we don't subscribe to, we haven't found yet, but
that I haven't found yet. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Or even, I guess, like, you know, maybe, so think of that and think of like people that we haven't subscribed to, but like why that particular subset of people that, you know, we find interesting. I know for me, like, I mean, they're just all kind of like going after it. Like I'm big on like the hustle. I'm big on the like getting after it. You know, I think, for me, the intelligence is a byproduct of kind of like the learning process. And if you get something out of it and you're able to, you know, convey it or make it meaningful, then, you know, there's that maybe some intelligence there. But all those guys seem like they're very intelligent too. And it's easier for me to subscribe to someone that, you know, like you said, can back up their thoughts.
Yeah. It makes me feel like a dumbass.
Yeah, is respectful. And I don't know. I mean, that's another reason why I'm like, oh, okay, I can, you know, listen to these guys. It doesn't mean that I agree with everything they say, but like, they're going to back it up with a reason. And maybe I disagree with that reason. And then I need to be able to back it up with a reason why I disagree with that reason.
Well, I think a perfect example is Neil deGrasse Tyson. Obviously an incredibly intelligent individual. And what makes him special is he has the ability, even more so than like the Weinsteins, to take a extremely complex idea and explain it very basically. I think that's why I like him, because I'm like, oh yeah, like that guy knows my wave level. Like he understands where I'm at. Like his brain's way up top and I'm way at the bottom, and that's okay. But he can bring it down and like give me some concepts that I can understand.
What's his book? Like Astrophysics for Not So Smart People? Or something?
No, he has one that he has a couple out, but the one was Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, I think.
Okay.
I like the not so smart people.
Not so smart. Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
That's basically. But he has some more complex things, but there's a lot of things with Neil deGrasse Tyson that I would lean on the side of disagreeing with him.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's much more studied and, you know, educated than I am, and I'm sure he could explain it. But I think even with, he's in a territory when it comes to things like quantum physics and astrophysics and, you know, astrology and all those things where some of it's still belief. Like, tell me what antimatter is. And he says, we don't know. Okay, well then you can't tell me that I'm wrong about my beliefs on antimatter. If you say I don't know what it is and we can't prove, we have no way to prove what it is, then you can't tell me that I'm wrong. But I appreciate your thoughts on it. And there's some things that ride that line that I don't agree with everything that, you know, Neil deGrasse Tyson says or Peterson says, but if you have the intelligence and the articulation to be able to explain something like that and be able to dive down into it without getting upset and just being a fucking chimpanzee and throwing shit at people.
Yeah,
like
literally what you said, the upset was the key word because this was my next thing I was going to say is I think the other reason it's kind of easy to like listen to some of those people and subscribe to them is just because there's not that emotion.
Yeah. There's no ego there.
Yeah.
I mean, man, maybe there's an ego.
No, and there might be an ego.
But there's no aggression.
No. Well, I think emotion is kind of the key word in terms of like the things they say, even if it's their opinion, they're gonna back it up with something that's facts that support that opinion instead of just emotions.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of emotions, man. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm so sick and tired of emotions.
There's a
Like,
place for emotions,
There is.
but it's not on the.
It's probably, walking down the aisle or the bedroom, not arguments and discussions.
out in the public square.
Yeah, bring me some facts.
Yeah, what is-
When did we become so scared of facts?
Yeah, we'll have to find that. I need to know that lady's name with Peterson, because that was a perfect example. I don't know if you watched it, where she was
I know who you're talking about.
she's just grilling him.
Oh, yeah.
Can you look that up to see what it's?
Yeah, I feel
Peterson and-
because when I Google it, it comes up on screen, and I don't know.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. But I remember, it was like Peterson. I don't know. It's probably something like Peterson owns liberal woman interviewer or something like that. Some douchebag might put up there.
They also talked about the.
Yeah, what's her name? The third picture to the right there.
Sorry,
Yeah, I bet that's the one right there.
can we click on it?
Yeah, just don't play it. We can pull it out, I'm sure, but I think that's her. But yeah, so he had this interview, and the whole time she's going, "So what you're saying is," and he was like, "No, that's not what I'm saying." And he basically like, "What I'm saying is what I'm saying, and this is what I'm saying." He explained it again. She's like, "Oh,
For my wallet, I just
so
wanted
what
three
you're
things.
really
Had to
saying?"
be
Helen
simple,
Lewis.
really easy to access your cards, and
Let's
last
scroll
forever.
down there. Is it-
I'm BJ Minson. I'm the founder of
Yeah, it should be Channel 4. Yeah. What's show more? Click on show more. Down there at the bottom there. It says show more underneath the paragraph. Yeah, because that's the one. That's the interview.
So that's when you had me watch.
Yeah, but it's a really good. But either way, if anyone wants to find it, it's a Channel 4. He did an interview with Channel 4. It's a British public broadcasting service. You can find it on YouTube and whatever. But it says Jordan Peterson. He kind of talks about gender pay gap and different things like that. But it's don't. I just wouldn't even. Yeah, but that last video was the one, the Channel 4 News one. I can't remember what her name is for sure, but it was. I think that's the one that got me, was because it was like she just kept on trying to antagonize him, and I remember listening to him talk about. He said before they went on, that she was super nice.
Yeah.
And it was just like real congenial. And then all of a sudden he said, as soon as they said you're live, she just attacked him. And that's what TV is. You have these 10, 15, maybe at most 15-minute slot these people have to fill, and you want to get a good answer out of somebody and an honest answer. No. TV they want salaciousness. They want that clip. They want that, and they're like, all right, we got 7 minutes. You got to do. Like, you don't have time to really explain yourself. And that was the first time where I saw him, and I was like, oh, like, this is something interesting here, because he didn't freak out at her. He didn't get upset like a lot of people do. And he said, no, that's not what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. And he re-explained it. And that's what got me down.
And that's hard.
It's really hard, because when someone's really attacking, like she was attacking him, like, especially for a live TV thing, like she was attacking him.
And I understand what you're saying about facts and emotions, but for someone like him, that can't all be fact-based. Some of that has to do with his emotions and his feelings and what he feels towards something.
Yeah, it's all a form of ideology,
Yeah.
for sure.
So to be attacked like that and to still keep your composure, it's one thing if it's just fact-based and you don't get emotionally involved with it, and you can.
Right.
But she
a
was
belief, yeah.
attacking him as a person and what he was believing and what he was choosing or choosing not to do and what he was standing for.
Yeah, and she
That's
wasn't even saying
hard.
essentially that he was wrong. She was going the route of a lot of people do nowadays, where it's, if you speak up on something or you disagree with something, you're a sexist. Oh, you're a bigot. Or you're a racist. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Like, whoa, like.
Or not even saying that, just you said this. No, I didn't say that at all.
Right.
You paraphrased completely. That's not all what I said.
Yeah,
Completely
people do
incorrect.
that a lot these days. So it's like, no, that's not what I said. Like, this is what I said, and that's hard. And for that group of people so far are some of the biggest contributors that I've found. That are like, oh, like they're able to present an idea without freaking out, because I think we see that a lot these days. Is everyone's just so quick to freak the fuck out.
All I can think of is if these conversations were had like back in the Wild West or back in the day. Can you imagine like some of these people talking about their feelings?
Oh, they would have been dead. Well, they just would have been shot. They'd been like, I ain't got time for that. Yeah. Give me another beer. Yeah, or whatever it was that they were drinking then. Warm
God.
sludge. Yeah. We've come a long way as humans, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a good growth, but it's scary too because the more advanced you get, the more ability you have to turn it to shit.
Yeah, but I don't know if some of the things we've mentioned are advanced. I don't know that I'd call them
Consciously,
advanced.
maybe not cognitively, but consciously. That's the whole debate, right? What are we? What is conscious?
Yeah, why are you so afraid of feelings over there? I hate to be the only chick
Yes.
here being like, oh,
I've
feelings.
spoken that before.
so-
But
Maybe
man,
not
I
on
think
the podcast.
I think
No,
feelings could definitely, and I know you have feelings. I have lyrics on T-shirts that you wrote. I've heard your music. You definitely have a
Yeah.
place for feelings.
You just said it. You just answered
There's a time
your
and place.
question. There's absolutely a time and a place for feelings. And, when we're talking about something that's science-based, when we're talking about something that's tactics-based, when we're talking about police, when we're talking about, certain things, maybe there's certain areas where emotions are okay. But if you're going to base an entire argument on emotions,
Yeah, I agree there.
you can fuck right off.
I think emotions are different than feelings.
Break that down for me.
Well, when you say emotions, I feel like emotion is...
Meat bake.
Is that the feeling being expressed?
Yeah, so I feel like you can have a feeling
Okay.
and that can be yours and just yours. I feel like once you have emotion and you're doing something
And
with emotion...
emotions aren't a
then
bad
it's-
thing either all the time. So I
No,
don't
no,
want you to think
definitely
that.
not. No, I agree. I think when you respond with emotion...
Yeah, where's that line?
Yeah, because it definitely needs to go. I think that it needs to. There needs to be a place for it, and I also think that there definitely is a place for fact based. And then. But I feel like when you decide something from just emotions, that's when you get into trouble for sure. But I feel like there's. I don't know. Now I just sound like an idiot. But
You don't sound like an idiot. We're just exploring.
yeah, I think that, and I don't want to be that person who comes off. I don't know. You guys have mentioned a couple of times something masculinity,
Toxic
toxic
masculinity.
masculinity, and I have read some shit that it legit makes sense. Like
On toxic masculinity.
yes, that
Pray
I can
tell.
completely, I can completely get behind for sure.
Well, let's hear it. I want to hear it.
Oh, it's just things like.
Hold on a second. Before I want to hear it, if it was an emotional based comment, I would just interject with something emotional instead of asking you what your opinion was and to hear this. So there's an example of how we're not emotional because I'm going, cool. Let me hear what you have to say. Like we're willing to listen to
But you're also practical.
Yeah, but that's
because
but
I'm
that's,
not
yes.
fucking highly emotional.
right. Right.
So, but you have a feeling about
application.
it. But if you were coming at me emotionally and said you have that personal feeling,
Sure.
and then
No, but I'd like
responding emotionally.
genuinely want to hear, kind of what you read and on the toxic masculinity and please.
Yeah.
take,
And that's the
you know,
application of practicability, right? Is being able to separate your emotions from your actions.
Did you say practicability?
Yeah, is that not a word?
Practicality?
Practicality? Did I say
I
practicability?
kind of like practicability. It's like practical ability. That's a good. That's a
Yeah, I don't know.
solid.
I feel
That's
like
a,
there's some-
That's a beautiful neologism right there. Is what that is. Please continue, guys.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
so maybe what I'm going to say doesn't completely fall into the toxic masculinity category. And if I have it misconstrued or it's wrong, just correct me. But we have talked about it before and we've disagreed, but
Yeah.
we also have agreed. So it was basically along the lines of boys are raised to think that they have to be this certain way, right? Especially men who are now adults that have boys that are older, that men don't cry, boys don't cry. They do this thing. They have to be tough. They have to do manly things. And I'm not saying that I don't like a manly man. It's personally, as a female, that is what I need. That is what I'm attracted to. That is what I want. That is what I got.
Got that shit covered.
Yeah. However, if you couldn't show me feelings or emotions or a tear every now and then, I don't fucking want that either. And it didn't used to be you at all. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's a nature versus nurture thing, but I think boys are raised to be a certain way because there can't be a weakness. You know, they have to be strong. And
I mean, to believe that there's not a weakness is a weakness in and of itself.
I agree with that.
I agree with that. Yeah. But I just think that they're just expected to be this certain way. And it's by the time they're adults or, you know, in college or high school or whatever, they don't fucking know what to do because they've been told that they need to be this certain way. Now they have these feelings and, well, no, you're not supposed to have those. Like, don't have those. So I think that they're just, when I say
toxic masculinity,
it's just that they were never given this permission to be a human. Like, you can be a chick and you can have some masculine traits that you like to do and you can have feminine traits. But if you're a guy, like, you can only do this. And I think that that's just such a disservice because being compassionate, that's not a female thing. That's a human thing. But boys aren't brought up to express that or that's not encouraged normally. So I think that when I hear toxic masculinity, that's what I think of. I feel like maybe you explain it to me that it's much different than that they're trying to take away or think that all masculinity is.
So that's
what I'm coming from.
Yeah. Well, so I think there's a lot of people that there's so many things I could equate to that. You know, I'll just be inflammatory right up. Might as well while we're on toxic masculinity. I think your thoughts in what toxic masculinity is, and I might get this a little wrong. You know how I am with my analogies, Tony. You usually have to.
Oh God!
No,
I was like, Fred, what the fuck are you
I know.
saying?
There's a path.
I
there.
also think that when I'm listening to these on Monday morning.
Yeah, there's a path there. It's just I got it. You know what? I'm not Eric and Brett Weinstein or Peter. I haven't had years to think about this. I've literally thought about this stuff for like 6 months. So give me a goddamn break.
I do, and we get to the bottom of it, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I need some clarity.
So I know this is a topic we've discussed before, and it's right up
toxic
there.
masculinity or
toxic masculinity, and what I'm about to say.
Okay,
it's kind of like BLM.org.
I know exactly what you're gonna. I know where you're going here.
And the sentiment Black Lives Matter. Because do I think there is such a thing as toxic masculinity and it's a bad thing? Yes. But do I think the normal, boys just being boys is toxic masculinity? Fuck no. Because it's biological. It's that kind of goes back to the rubber band concept I always talk about where, there's a normal range for things. And some things are outside of that range. And some things we try to push outside of that range. Like you get a group of girls for the most part, even if they're the nature nurture thing, for the most part, girls with our daughter, you want to play baseball, you want to wear, boy clothes. We don't care. She keeps on going back to the princesses. We don't push it. We don't even we definitely don't encourage it at all. But some people just like the things they like. So anybody that argues that, well, then you could easily argue, well, what about that male that grows up and decides that he's gay and he likes painting his nail, he realizes that he's a female in a male's body. Well, he decided that. Why can't a girl decide to do quote unquote stereotypical girl things? So I think there are things that are toxic and, like saying that, females can't do certain things as good as males. or all things. Like, no,
Well, that's just factual.
well, certain things, certain physical things, but saying a female can't be a president of a company or a CEO of a company or run a company well, or a female can't do this. Like, well, there's some physical things that just biologically females typically aren't given. Well, guess what? There's some females out there that I know for damn certain could whoop the fuck out of my ass. Like, I wouldn't mess with them at all. Like, but the normal ranges are normal ranges. Like, let's stop trying to pretend that. And everyone always like to give example, like, oh, well, there's gay penguins and this. Yeah, I totally agree, and that's fine. But
Did he just say gay?
It's a thing.
it is a thing.
No, I-
And they'll-
that shit
You know
up.
what they do?
It's a thing.
They'll steal eggs from a normal couple.
From straight pigeon couples.
Penguins. Yeah, but so what I'm saying is, like, let's
Penguins.
not. Yeah,
Pigeons.
yeah, but so I think, but some people will go as far to say, like, oh, if this boy grows up and he wants to wear boots and grow a beard and, shoot guns and wrestle with his buddies, that's toxic masculinity and it's bad. Well,
Bro, how dare you describe me to a T?
yeah, like, no, like, it's just, so I think that the
So
boys,
my
Hold on.
agreeance to that is a thing.
I think it's a thing, but it's just like, it goes back to the Black Lives Matter.
To
thing.
how I think of it.
Right.
and to how it's
but
being
there's a lot of
presented.
people out there that don't see it like you. There's a lot of people that would say, like, I think we'll just get down nitty gritty for me, going the Black Lives Matter analogy. Yes, Black Lives Matter. Absolutely. 100%. Do I think they've been given a raw deal in the United States in its history? Absolutely. 100%. Do I think there's systemic things that have been put in place to keep, certain groups and areas and stuff down? Absolutely. 100%. But do I think Black Lives Matter as an organization is fighting for them? Fuck no. I think they're doing the black community a disservice because they're just using it as some tool to get what they want. So that's kind of your idea of toxic masculinity is kind of like my idea of Black Lives Matter. But there's a lot out there that quote unquote toxic masculinity is I see as the BLM organization. That they're doing everybody a wrong fucking deal just to make some fucking money. And, I think, and for everyone's talk about corruption, this, that, whatever, whether it's, there can't be corruption in good places, quote unquote, good ideas like churches. How much corruption is there has shown to be in churches? Well, churches are supposed to be the safe haven, right?
I just heard a conversation the other day about some nice church corruption locally.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
So don't tell me just because something is titled that has a good intention attached to it that it can't be bad. Get the fuck out of here.
So let me comment on this real quick. So by what you're saying, like if you're like, hey, the toxic masculinity, like boys are raised to like, they can't cry, they can't show emotions. If that's the definition of toxic masculinity, then it is toxic. Like the fact that boys can't have emotions or they can't cry, that's ridiculous. Like that's dumb. Like I don't believe in that. Like all humans should be able to have the ability to basically display their emotions and to get them out. Because when you don't have emotions, then that's when you become a serial killer.
That's
Or
when
that's
you-
when you
a
have a mass
psychopath.
shooting or like that's when bad things happen when they stay bottled up. When I think of toxic masculinity, like I've heard a little bit different than just that. So there is that emotional component that goes into it, but it's a little more wide reaching in terms of like certain things that were from the past that were considered the male, the male that, went out and worked with his hands, or the male that, he worked and the wife stayed home. And I'm not saying I subscribe to that. I'm not saying the wife has to stay home. I'm just saying that those original ideas, the male being the leader of the relationship, those things have become toxic masculinity. And I don't think that those are toxic masculinity. It doesn't mean in every single relationship the male is the leader. Maybe he's not a strong male. Maybe his morals are corrupt. Maybe he's just a shitty human being. Maybe he hasn't been able to deal with his own emotions, and so he abuses that person.
Or maybe he just likes the direction. Maybe he needs to focus on one aspect and
he found a partner
that likes
who
to
likes,
lead.
yeah, absolutely. And I
And if
think
that
those
works for him, then
yeah, I agree.
Great.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that relationships or men that still have some of those characteristics that aren't being detrimental to another human being have toxic masculinity.
I completely agree with you.
I think that toxic part is that where the idea that it infiltrates the people around them. Like no, like as long as like the relationship that we're having in that relationship I have with people around me.
Respectful. Going back to what we're talking about, respect and being able to listen to someone. So you, just as you can have toxic masculinity, I wholeheartedly believe you can have toxic femininity.
Oh yeah.
I agree.
And by just not virtue, the laws of everything that is, if you have one, you got to have the other, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, I think that's where that's where my emotion gets involved, is when, all right, you want to say this thing exists, well, then the opposite has to. You want to get scientific on me. You want to talk about facts. Like, well, if there's light, there's got to be dark.
Action's a reaction.
Action and reaction.
Well, what did I
masculinity,
text you
there's gotta be-
yesterday, or whatever day, that I heard a commercial on the radio? It was
Oh,
Diamond Direct or whatever,
Yeah.
and it was men
Reward her for all the things that she's done. Or
yeah,
something
reward her, and I was like, "Am I a motherfucking dog? What is this?"
Yeah,
and
and
he
at the
was
same
like,
time, like-
"And what did you say?"
I said basically, well, it's not any different than typical society treats the average male. You look at shows on TV or whatever, like King of the Hill, all these different that's an older show. Ooh, I am old. Yeah, so old. But you look at
Bobby.
you look at the normal
God damn it,
like
Bobby.
like that here's a good really good example, was it the not King of Queens, what's the other one, but so many shows and movies and everything else, they show this dopey ass dad
Yeah.
who's got a dad bod.
Yeah.
He's whatever, I don't care, like whatever, but he's dumb, he's always screwing things up, and it takes the woman, and she's of course super hot, married to this fucking slob.
It was King of
Queens or
I
whatever.
think.
Is that the
Yeah,
one I was
he's like a
thinking of?
FedEx driver or something. She's
Yeah.
super
Kevin,
cute and
what's his name?
yeah,
Yeah, but like
The
you
mall
know-
cop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but like that's the same thing society has shown. Like men are these, I think and maybe that's trying to battle that toxic masculinity that we've came out, because I think there is a lot of that. Like back in the day, it's whatever, but the same idea. Like, but people look to media and these things that we're getting poured into our faces all the time of what we should be. Same thing, like go on Instagram. You see these people on Instagram, they're taking their pictures. How many times people have talked about that? Like the pictures you see on Instagram that's a little snapshot of someone's perfect little life.
And they're not
And they're
real.
not. They're not real. And not even are the pictures like
They've got lights and apps and they contour their noses.
yeah, and then the app, and they get in the app and they change their fucking body.
Catfish.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, but I think one of the disservices against that toxic masculinity is, well, males have been taught the same thing, that they have to be this, that, whatever.
Yeah.
And so let's stop pretending that just because you're a guy, you got it great, or just because you're a hot chick that you've got it great, or, whatever. And obviously I know we've discussed before too, like it's difficult, especially now, coming from a white dude's perspective, like, because what do I have to say? Like, I think it's Louis C.K. Talk about inflammatory, but he had a joke years ago, before the whole beating off in front of people thing. Yeah, but he had the joke of going back in time. He's like he's like, as a white dude, I go back in time anytime I want. As a white guy, you can go back in time anywhere and be like, oh, this is pretty cool. But eventually that's going to turn around, whatever. And or if you had to die and when you come back, God it's like, oh no, yeah, I'll pick white guy again. It's been pretty good, but just because it's been pretty good for a subset of people, it doesn't mean that every person in that subset has had a wonderful life or doesn't have difficulties.
Conversely, doesn't mean that every minority had a horrible life.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of people that are And that's what, like, I think too, we kind of forget because we're Americans and we lose sight beyond,
America.
Yeah. America, let alone more than 100 years ago.
America.
Yeah. Like there's people around the world that, guess what? They're not white or black and they've been enslaved or they have it really well off. Like there's other people on this planet than just us.
Dude, that goes back to like if everyone had to do some sort of service off the rip, be it the military, be it the Doctors Without Borders, be it the Peace Corps, something like that, and just going, hey, you need to get out of this country. You need to go serve someone else besides yourself and see what's up. And then maybe you'd be a little more empathetic to what's going on with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And maybe you'd open your eyes up to how fucking good you actually have it.
And you're not the only one that exists. Sorry to break it to you, but everything you see on the TV it's not just on the TV. It's real shit happening. Whether someone's making it up or not, but that's real people acting it out.
Yeah. No, but just quick synopsis of your toxic masculinity. Absolutely. If boys are raised to think that they can't cry or they can't have emotions and that defines toxic masculinity, then I agree. It's toxic. Like you need to be able to get your feelings out. You need to be able to have whatever emotions that, you have in a healthy manner. And if that's toxic masculinity, then I wholeheartedly agree with that. So I think I've heard it said a little bit differently. And maybe you have too. Maybe that wasn't, all encompassing when you think of toxic masculinity. But, you even hear the phrase toxic masculinity and it's just not get rid of toxic. You just hear masculinity and all of a sudden now it has a negative connotation.
Yep. No, it's bad.
You're like, oh, masculinity. And you're like, what do you mean masculinity? Like, that's a dude who's going out and busting his ass and working some manual labor job or like providing for his family. And he's willing to lay down his life for that family. He's like, I don't know. I think it's.
Well, I don't think masculinity itself, like I completely agree with everything you're saying. I think that everybody has masculinity and femininity. Like it's polarized. Like each person has. You've got some feminine in you, Tony. We all do, and it comes out. Just
I've had my E2 tested. It's a zero.
So that's weird. I was gonna take it to the bedroom. Every night is not the same. There are some nights where you just want to be. You just want to be fucking dominated. That is you taking on a feminine role, and that is me taking on a masculine
That's toxic masculinity.
Role.
The fact that you have to be dominating, if that's the only way it happens, is dominating a female. That's toxic masculinity.
But there's masculine and feminine. It's a thing. It's in all of us.
Yeah, but so that comes down to the definition of the word. And I think maybe this is where it all kind of comes together. Is
which, by the way, I'm getting kind of scared of these microaggressions with both your hands.
Sorry. There's people and there's organizations that want to take a narrative to not necessarily redefine, but try to define words in people's minds in a different way than what they really are. Because what's femininity? What's masculinity? Mm-hmm. Some people are going to define that differently.
Absolutely.
It goes back to even tying it into, racism. Well, some people say you can only be racist. Well, you can't. Sorry, let me.
Well, you're black. You can't be racist.
Yeah,
you're white. Always racist.
Yeah, or you can't have racism acted upon you if you're white. Well, that negates the actual definition of the word race, but some people will say, well, no, racism is a institutional thing. It's not a race thing. Well, why the fuck are we calling it racism then? Why are we calling it institutionalism? Some people like to take the definitions of words. Well, okay, maybe we need to define the words we're speaking about before we have it.
Semantics.
Yeah. Like, how are we going to have a discussion if we can't even agree on the definition of the words that we're using?
So that got me thinking when we started talking about masculine toxicity is how many people get into crazy disagreements that boil into way more than that, because they have the same word, but they have completely different definitions.
Yeah.
Because my
That's the basis
definition
of
of it
Weird
is so
definitions.
much different than yours, but I think that we all completely agree.
I think we quoted I think I threw that quote out there early on. The problem with communication is the illusion that it actually occurred.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good way. Like,
Yeah.
how can we have a discussion when we're working out of different dictionaries?
Yeah.
Like it's all saying the same thing, but like that's really neat.
Mine's Webster's book
I
of
like that.
toxic masculinity.
Toxic
Over here.
I'm gonna have to use that one from that. I like that.
Yeah.
How can we have a conversation if we're not using the same dictionaries?
I mean, it makes sense.
Maybe that's where it boils down to.
And in my mind, it's more than just boys can't cry and emotions and feelings. It's being okay having a partner that makes more money than you, because that's not normal.
I'd be a stay-at-home
You
dad.
you totally would. It's stay-at-home dad. Being stepping into the parent role that's more nurturing. Yeah, chicks are usually born with that.
Ooh, can you say chicks?
Ooh.
Is that an acceptable 2020 term?
I feel like when you have a vagina, you're allowed.
I don't know. Sounds like there's some kind of reverse, like not even 180, like 720, like bad. Yeah, that's for sure. Someone could totally tear you apart for that.
I feel slightly offended.
Me too.
Chicks.
I do.
Female.
I
Females. Check.
I feel offended
Females.
that you would even consider the fact that a stay-at-home dad is a good thing, because that's what males should be doing to support their strong females, because they've gone through so much oppression through time.
Calm down, Rick.
Your neck is like red and inflamed right now.
No, I know we're joking about this, but like
Well, there
these
are people who-
conversations
Actually
actually happen. That's why we're making light of
No,
them. Like I'm not, I don't
right.
think that they're not legitimate conversations that shouldn't happen, but it's like, holy smokes. Like these conversations really happen. Like, how did we get here?
And I would love
And
to
what
have,
happens if we continue?
yeah. And I would love to be able to sit down. I just see even the thought in my head just stopped abruptly because it sounded so ridiculous. I would love to sit down and have a conversation with somebody that believes those things, like a legitimate conversation, and be able to talk through some of that stuff. But as I was saying it in my head, I realized like, well, a lot of at least it seems. And if you're one of those people that think that way, please reach out. I would love to talk to you, and prove me wrong. Please do. I used to hate being proven wrong, but now I go for it. You're going to say something.
You totally still do.
I still do, but I'd like for somebody to prove me wrong, because it gives me an opportunity to learn something. I'm much more open to that. But it seems like some of those people that believe in those extreme things, you can't have a conversation with them, because it's their way or the highway. You can't do that. That's not what a conversation is. You need back and forth in two ways to understand and explain things. But they've gotten some of those conversations you have with people, and you see that people get very good at finding that one little key phrase or that key word that you can't refute, because it's just, sexism, racism, classism, whatever it is. Like, as soon as you put that, it's like the Trump card, not the Donald Trump card, the actual card, Trump card you put down. It's like, sorry, you can't beat that. No, you're this, you're that. Sorry. Conversation's over. And it goes back to, well, how do we get back to society as a...
My fellow Americans, I did not say that.
Okay, so what about the males who have been raised this certain way because their dad was raised a certain way, and he was raised this certain way, and
How does that change? How do you change that?
yeah, so they're in the beginning of a marriage, or they're in a relationship, and she wasn't raised that way, so she expects 50-50 or a little bit of fluidity, and she expects, if we're gonna have a child together, like, you're changing some fucking diapers, and I go to work and you do this. How do you... I think that it's definitely possible. How do you start to open your... How do you become a divergent thinker when you've been raised that males are this way. And there's nothing wrong with a male that way. But when you have a partner who says, no, that's not what I want in a partner, and he wants to stay in this relationship, I mean, your thought process changed over the years. I mean, when I was pregnant, I knew that you were a partner 50-50. That was never a concern. But your thought process on feelings and emotions and how men can still be manly and still be completely open with things completely changed. So how do you take a young man who's trying to start a family or a life with someone, he's only ever been raised a certain way? Maybe that's not masculine toxicity, but it's that thought process of how he was raised.
Real quick. So at the same time, we could say, well, how do you take a woman that is expected to, or she thinks she's expected to stay home and do the things around the house, this, that, whatever, but the guy wants her to work, and they both want to, same opposite, like using the same from the same background. Like, no, you're not going to sit at home. You're not going to just live off of my paychecks. Like, this is 50-50. I would like.
Sounds like there's some initial disconnects when they first got together.
So
and
right there,
maybe they should have had a bit more communication.
Right. So that's where, like, we talk about having a baby. If you got all the way to the point of having a baby with somebody,
it's probably too fucking late.
Yeah, like maybe you should have considered all those things before you decided to,
penetrate.
Well, maybe not penetrate. I'm like, let this clump of cells that turn into this person that's going to grow into an adult,
okay.
like some, like before you have a baby together, like maybe you should consider those things and have those conversations with that person, saying like, look, like this is what I want, this, that, whatever, with the condition that, hey, these things might change, but this is what I want. Because guess what? If a woman wants a man who's going to be 50-50 and who's going to help out around the house, and, and that doesn't necessarily have to be always 50-50 with work or 50-50 with house stuff or the kids. Like, I think there's more than just, raising a family than money and taking care of the kid and the housework, whatever, how people typically split that. But if the guy doesn't want to do any work and the chick, the female,
the chick,
you started it. I'm blaming it on you.
I have a vagina. I'm allowed.
Yeah, maybe I need to. You don't know.
I do.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, but maybe she doesn't reproduce with that male. And guess what? Evolution at its finest. He doesn't have offspring. If chicks are so sick and tired of fucking the way dudes are acting, stop having babies with them. I mean, ultimately, on a grand scale, I mean, that might be a little abrasive, but if you're tired of the way certain people act, don't fuck them. Then you don't have to worry about having offspring that creates more fucking people you don't like. If you're going to have a baby, make some people you like.
I mean, I can get behind that.
I mean, grand scale.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't answer my question.
No, but I think so. It's communication. Once you get to that point, you have to have that communication with somebody, and maybe you can change their mind, or maybe not. Then it's okay. See you later.
Yeah, I think this is a bigger discussion on whether or not people can change in general once they hit a certain age.
That's true. I think they can.
Well, you have changed, so it's. I mean, it's.
I'm not saying all people are going to change.
No, I know that. I think it's rare.
It is
that people can truly change. Mm-hmm. I think it's almost anomalous that people can truly change. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think
drastic change.
Yeah. I think there almost has to be either like you're either going to lose something that was very near and dear to you, or you do lose something that's very, like, basically almost something catastrophic or near catastrophic for, to elicit some sort of a change. Otherwise, I think people are kind of like, they're who they are. It goes back to that 50, 49%, 51%, like nature nurture. Mm-hmm. Like, you've got these imprinted genes, like here's your genome, and then you've got the environment, and the environment's only going to influence you so much. And then if your environment is telling you things like, you shouldn't cry, you're a fucking man. Like, don't let me see you cry, or I'll beat the shit out of you. Like, you're probably not going to change, and no female is probably going to get you to change either, because you've got the genes going against you and you've got the way you were raised going against you.
Yeah. Well, no one's going to get you to change.
Yeah.
We've talked about that before.
True.
We talked, especially relating it to drug addicts and whatever, because no one's going to get you to change. Because if you change for somebody else,
It's not going to last.
it's not a change.
Yeah.
You're just masking something. You're changing your actions. But
Well, and I think some of it falls onto, I'm going to say female because I'm talking about heterosexual relationships, but obviously it could go either way, to a partner of a male who wants to change. I said I am attracted to a masculine man. Maybe that is adding to the weird discussion of masculine toxicity, because I'm saying, I want a person who is very masculine, but also who's compassionate and okay with their feelings and their emotions. I think that the partner, females, whatever, have to be okay with wanting that masculine person, but also leaving space for them to not be masculine. Giving them permission and the safe space where they can be vulnerable and maybe try out those different ideals of they're being vulnerable. They're now trying this compassion and this emotion and these feelings and all of this stuff. But it can be very uncomfortable for females, even though that's what they want.
Right.
They've also have been conditioned that men are manly. They're masculine. So it's really it's hard. I don't know if it's hard, but it's a weird thing for females to be able to give them that space to be vulnerable and touch those other bases.
Yeah. Well, I think now you're getting into a deep relationship between two people. And that's a whole different other, ball game there, to go from the interactions of people in a day-to-day life, coworkers and friends and family and things, to a deep, intimate relationship. Because I think that's where rules change. I think not necessarily that they change, but they evolve, as it were. Because obviously I'm not going to have the same type of emotional relationship with Tony as I am with you, my wife. You know what I mean? So I think those different stages, kind of like I have a different relationship with my coworkers than I do Tony. We've talked about it not a bunch of times, but we've talked about it off the air before, where, even though my beliefs will stay the same, but I will phrase things differently to you, Tony, than I normally would if the mics are on. And that's not because I'm afraid of my beliefs and what they'll be on the microphone, but
I just know you, and it's
right, because
it's easier to ascertain what the fuck you're actually
I don't
thinking or
have to
saying.
articulate myself nearly as well, because you understand where I'm coming
understood.
from. Yeah. Yep. Where I'm just like, I go, ugh. You're like, oh, he needs another beer.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But normally if I go out in public, I go, ugh. I'm like,
yeah.
what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Psych ward committed.
Right, exactly. So I think that's a line too, where it makes it really hard, once again, in the technological, world we live in, going back to like what Joe said. Imagine having your worst moment in your entire life videoed and replayed over and over and over and over. Your very worst moment in your life.
That was pretty crazy to think about that one.
And that's what people think about, all right, maybe that police officer that did this terrible thing is a terrible human being. Maybe he is. All right, go ahead, execute him. I have no problem with that. If it was something that someone did purposely, that's just this heinous thing, whatever. But what if it was just an accident? What if this or what if that? And that was literally the worst thing that somebody did their entire life. It's you could say the same thing for somebody in prison. What if it was that one time? obviously there's a lot of repeat offenders that go to prison. They do this, that, whatever. And, they do bad things. But what if somebody just happened to accidentally kill somebody in self-defense or something like that, but the evidence just didn't just sit right? And now they're sitting there in life for life in prison because of one small little tiny thing. Well, it goes back to those interactions that you have, whereas with a relationship, there's a lot more back and forth in a relationship. So you understand me more than anyone else. So you can have that emotional setting with somebody versus the next step to your friends. You're a little more connected to your friends, and then a little less connected to your coworkers, and then a little less connected to the human population that you see in the grocery store. And I think to say that you would treat all of those people the same is ridiculous.
No, I agree with that. I guess maybe what I was just trying to get at was that it's not just males who are contributing to that. It's that females or whoever has, coined this phrase, and then they want it fixed. But I don't think that there's a lot of room being given to said males to make these changes. Mm-hmm. Even if changes don't necessarily need to be made, like we said, it's perfectly fine. But if you do, I just think that it's not strictly men who are contributing to this as when there is a real issue.
So you, as the female population, you're taking a level of accountability for this toxic masculinity?
I'm pretty level-headed, Tone. So, I can't speak for all females.
So you're not speaking for the female population?
I am not.
We, the delegation of the females, take semi-responsibility for toxic masculinity.
Well, I'm glad you're not speaking for everybody, because anybody that speaks for everybody is a fucking idiot.
That's true.
Because
that's true.
You can't speak for everybody. You just can't. Everyone, because the second you start speaking for everybody is the second you say that everybody is the same.
Sounds like fallacies.
It's ridiculous. Heresy, I say. I don't even know if that's the right word. It just sounded good. I don't know. I gotta pee. Tony's peed like 5 times so far.
I don't know what to tell you, bro.
you guys
I got BPH, maybe? I don't know.
Do you want me to keep it rolling? Or?
Oh, we can. I don't know.
Yeah, I've got a question just for Tony.
Ooh, uh-oh.
Yeah. So I think you're real good about asking guests deep-ish questions.
Oh, you far away to deep-ish questions here at me?
So
Sure.
That's the show for today. Make sure you join us next week to hear Ant answer some deep-ish question. Remember, like, subscribe, all the things. Get a hold of us. Thank you. Until next time.